quite a number of you are aware of the Arusha Declaration, which was presided over by the late Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. And one of the requirements of that declaration was that there must be separation of powers in the Republic of Burundi. However, that is not what is going on currently. If you look at the setup as it is, the head of state is also the chairman of High Council. The chairman of the High Council is like the Judicial Service Commission here in Tanzania and also in Kenya and in Uganda. The secretary of the High Council is the Minister for Justice. So therefore you find that the Judicial Service Commission in Burundi is chaired by the president himself. That in a civilized democracy is not what we expect, because in a civilized democracy you'll expect the head of state is the head of the executive, the head of the judiciary is the chief justice, and the head of legislature is the speaker of parliament. Therefore, this has brought in other problems in that the judiciary in Burundi is not independent. Our president of Burundi Bar Association has been in a fight to make sure that there is a separation between the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. Government, annoyed by this kind of move, crusading against some of the abuse of human rights that sometimes go on Burundi and never addressed, decided, one, to stop him from traveling outside the country, took away his passport. That is the president of Burundi Bar Association, told him not to travel outside Burundi. The president of Burundi Bar Association has been representing many of victims of this kind of government machinations at the East African Court of Justice. That means he can't travel to prosecute his cases. Further, they were not satisfied with that. They went ahead and took a case against him for making what they called political statements to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal, in a very partial manner, quickly deliberated over that matter and took away his practicing certificate, which therefore means that now he has no capacity to continue operating as a lawyer, but also he has no capacity to act as the president of the Burundi Bar Association. This is a symptom of a very deep problem. I know in Tanzania here you are very close neighbors with Burundi, but there are very simmering, serious political problems, which we have asked in the past the East African Community Secretary General to sort out, but for one reason or the other, that has not been done. So the East African Law Society decided that enough was enough. We have filed a case against the government of Burundi, seeking, among other things, that the East African Community Secretary General to send a team to assess the situation in Burundi, whether Burundi should continue being a member of EAC. The reason why we have done this is because the East African Community Treaty is about good governance, rule of law, and promotion of economic, social rights. If there is any country that is not observing these tenets, very good tenets of any civilized democracy, then we do not think that they should continue staying in as East African Community members. You remember that when Southern Sudan had applied to become a member of EAC, one of the objections that was raised for their being admitted was the fact that they still do not have an organized political structure, and therefore they were not going to be compliant with the requirements of the treaty. And so we think that if the court orders the Secretary General and they assess and they find that really they should not continue staying, then we will ask the summit heads of state to follow up with that confirmation and decide that Burundi should stay aside for some time. It is important that we are also surprised that the East African community leaders are continuing with political integration when it is very clear that some of the countries that we want to integrate politically are still go a long way that are going to cause us problems. So it is important that those problems be sorted out before we even rush into political integration. The other issue, of course, so that now explains why we have gone to court over this matter. And of course, I'll be answering your questions after this. The other issue, of course, is the constitutional making process in the Republic of Tanzania. Following the example of Kenya, we will think that first of all, that move is welcome. To update the new constitution to be in tandem with the times. But as we have seen, the implementation of a new constitution is problematic, even in Kenya now. I'm sure some of you who read papers have seen in the latest the tiff between the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. One of the things that we will urge the people of Tanzania to take into account is that there must be clear lines between the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. Those borderlines must be extremely defined. Otherwise, there will be a problem. The second thing that I think that the people of Tanzania should take into account is the issue of finances. When you have a big bloated structure, one of the things that you should think about, how is it going to be financed? Where is the money going to come from? I know that there are proposals for having a three-tier system of government in Tanzania, the union government. You have the government that takes care of Zanzibar, takes care of Tanganyika, and then you have three. But then in the ultimate end, who is going to bear the burden of carrying that huge government? It is the ordinary wananchi, because the government doesn't have money of its own. It relies on taxes that people pay. So that if a bloated government is going to be a burden to the people of the Republic of Tanzania, then that needs to be re-evaluated. The other thing that I think that as we approach the referendum is that the people's views, what we saw and what we experienced in Kenya is sometimes the people in power sometimes try to a little bit, interfere with the views that have been gotten from the grassroots, because people in power do not like, usually parties that have been in power for a long time, they don't like changes. So you find that at the end of the day, when you take the matter to the Constituent Assembly, government will always try as much as possible to influence the outcome. Because the outcome could be a mongrel that the people of Tanzania do not even recognize in the first place. They say, this is not the sheep that we took inside there, because what has come out is a dog that nobody knows whether it's a dog or a cat. So it is important that the people also continue being very watchful, that the process is not manipulated to favor those who are in power and to keep themselves in power.